Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagenow. We are back here in Studio 130 for another fun-filled, action-packed episode of Iowa's premier conservative podcast. I'm here in studio with John Hendrickson and Chris Ingstad, and we are ready to roll today. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm glad John's back.
I am too.
He was gone yesterday, and we didn't even know what to think. We had no opinions on anything without John here to steer us.
And I have said before that John is the philosophical center of gravity here in the office, sort of the guiding light on where we need to go, what we need to do. So, well, good. Before we move any further, for those of you that are listening on the podcast, don't forget that we are on YouTube and Rumble for the days that I actually remember to upload this to Rumble as well. And if you're watching to us on YouTube and want to take us on the go, we're also on all your favorite podcast platforms. So, and don't forget to give us a good review and share the episode and help us grow. So we appreciate it.
Yep. Do your part to advance freedom and opportunity in Iowa, you guys.
Yeah. In addition to the myriad things you can do, sharing the ITR Live podcast has got to be really high on the list on how you can advance the cause of freedom in Iowa, right, John?
It is, absolutely. Okay. This is the gold standard of Iowa podcasts.
It is.
We are the flagship of conservative podcasts in Iowa.
Absolutely. Good. Well, let's before we move any further, we've got a lot of very central Iowa focused topics today. But I do want to check in on the presidential race real quick because we've talked about it in the past. So several updates since we've done that. Most recently is Senator Tim Scott has suspended his campaign. No one ever actually drops out of the race. They just suspend their campaign. But John, does that surprise you at all?
No, it doesn't. His campaign really never took off, and he. Not even sure what the highest level he got in the polls, maybe 5%. But I think he had a ton of money. I mean, certainly he had backers. I mean, and he's still running ads, which Channel 8 said last night that his ads will continue to run until the contract runs out.
Huh.
But my problem with Senator Scott's campaign was he was trying to be everything to everybody. And there was very little substance behind his candidacy. That's just my perspective. I didn't really think he stood out on any of the issues and tried to run a very generic campaign.
Chris, any thoughts on that?
No, John has said that all along. I think Tim Scott personally made a really favorable impression on people. A lot of people liked Tim Scott, the person. Maybe they would like having Tim Scott represent them in Congress. But to John's point, I'm not sure what lane he was carving out as a presidential candidate.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think what you've seen as we've shrunk in the field is candidates sort of moving into one of these lanes, ideological or focus-wise, and it certainly happened. There's a big list of endorsements for Nikki Haley that came out today, and that seemed to be a much more moderate list of folks. And so it looks like Nikki Haley's choosing that more, sort of establishmentarian, moderate lane, and there might be room there. I don't think there's room there to get any higher than third place in Iowa, but
it's certainly not a lane that a lot of others are trying to occupy.
But that's right. So yeah, I completely agree with the point. Tim Scott, and I don't know about his favorables, but everyone I talk to, I like Tim Scott.
Yes.
And I think they were open to supporting him and saw him as a conservative. It just never translated into, a broad base of support of folks saying Tim Scott's my first choice.
Yep.
So anyway, did you also see, guys, did you see
And by the way, it looked like, diving into that article, if Tim Scott was your first choice, who was your second choice? And I think it was pretty evenly spread between the other top three, Trump, DeSantis, and Haley. In other words, like redivide or reshuffle the Tim Scott voters, and nobody really moves.
Well, another Channel 8 update. They did rework the poll, I believe, from the Register,
right,
and showed that if I remember right, with Tim Scott leaving the race, it elevated both DeSantis and Haley by 2 points, so they have them at each having 18% of the vote, and Trump at 45-46.
So again, still fairly negligible.
Yeah, I still take that last register poll with a grain of salt because there's been a lot of movement in the race since then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
most significantly is the governor's endorsement and subsequent work on that. So I still, my gut tells me that there is not a tie for second place in Iowa right now, is that DeSantis is clearly ahead of Nikki Haley. But we'll have to get some more public polls into that. Did you guys see this about the dust up between Family Leader and the RNC?
Yes.
Okay, so as I understand it, Family Leader had one of these presidential forums planned to bring in, I'm sure they invited everyone, but bring in whoever would be there to appear at one of their events, which is very standard in the Iowa caucuses, different groups.
I think they've done it for a number of years.
Yeah, right. And the RNC did not like that at all because they want to have complete control over the debates. And so after...
Because the RNC's position was that whatever discussion that was going to be had at the Family Leader among candidates or between candidates and Family Leader representatives was going to be too close to debate. They're saying, well, this is actually debate, everything but name.
I thought maybe they just were insistent that we have mainstream news reporters doing the questioning. Like the RNC was insistent that we have Lester Holt asking questions of presidential candidates instead of, actual Iowa Republican voters. But whatever.
When your debates don't get your former, Republican president or the front runner in every poll, I think RNC needs to go off their high horse about holding out their debates. Like, well, you're missing the leader in the polls,
Well,
let's not have so much pride in our debate here, you guys.
Why don't we step back from the turf battles and worry about just getting voters' information as we try to win an election?
Right.
But hey, far be it for me to tell the RNC how to do their job. But it appears that Family Leader has more clearly defined the rules of engagement on this, and all is well, and the RNC has backed down from this. So I think
DeSantis had weighed in and said, well, I'm showing up.
Yeah.
So
to Governor DeSantis' credit, he wasn't going to be dissuaded by that there'd be somehow penalties.
Would you say he didn't back down?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, look, John, you're a Republican primary voter or caucus goer, and I think you have a sense of what Republican primary voters are thinking. If there's an open battle between a presidential candidate and the RNC, how does that look to Republican primary voters? Whose side are they going to be on?
Well, they're going to be on the candidate's side.
That's right.
I mean, the RNC, I think, is it's ridiculous of trying to stop these forums. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Yeah. And these debates have been worthless, from my perspective.
I agree.
I mean, they just been a joke.
I don't know. I thought Vivek taking the media to task was kind of fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That was.
I mean, that moment. Was.
Yeah, it really was.
I have to say this. I think Vivek has been one of the most original thinkers in this campaign. He's brought up some good ideas, and so I have to give him credit on that front. He said things that need to be said.
I definitely agree with that. He certainly generates strong feelings one way or the other, which I guess that's to his credit. I mean, because he set himself out there. Mm-hmm. But his negatives are actually fairly high, even among Republican primary voters. So he gets people talking. There is no doubt about it. So I don't. John, tell me if you think I'm wrong. It feels like this is a 3-horse race now.
I think that's right. I mean, it certainly is. If the polls are right, President Trump has a commanding lead, and there's a battle between DeSantis and Haley to who can be the strong second and who's the best one to take on Trump and possibly even get the nomination away. And I still think things are pretty fluid in Iowa. And so and the way our politics has gone the last few years, anything can happen. So I wouldn't say this is a done deal at all.
Okay, last quick question before we move on. presidential candidate yard signs. Have you seen any in your neighborhood?
Well, I have not, because I have my neighborhood is governed by HOA.
Oh, well,
and so
okay. How about
there's
around your neighborhood? If you like, drive into work.
I have not. I've not seen. Although when I was traveling yesterday, I did see a few Trump signs.
Yeah.
And what I have seen more than yard signs has been these what do you call them, door hangers.
Yeah.
From the candidates that go around having
a lot of door-to-door work.
Yes. Yeah.
Chris, any yard signs in your neighborhood driving to work?
Nope.
So there was one Ron DeSantis sign that was up in my area for a little while, and I think that's since been taken down or blown away or whatever. And actually, I have one other yard in our neighborhood that has a fake sign in it, and it's the only one I've seen anywhere. So I don't know if that's indicative of anything. And actually, if none of the campaigns are doing yard signs at all, I support that as well, because I don't think they really have much value. So,
Yep.
All right, moving on. Now we get to all the Des Moines stuff here. Okay, guys, did you see this? So Libs of TikTok, pretty, I guess among conservatives, popular Twitter handle, which for the most part retweets stuff coming out of liberals online. So more left-wing, LGBTQ friendly teachers posting outlandish things and just retweeting them so that people can actually see them and amplifying messages leftists. So they came around, and it was a Des Moines school teacher. And the Des Moines school teacher said this on the Des Moines school teacher's picture of herself in her classroom, and said, "Every day is another opportunity to force kids in public schools to be gay." So Libs of TikTok shared that. The whole world sees it, and all kinds of attention all of a sudden gets showered down on Des Moines public schools and this teacher. So did you guys see this one?
Yes.
I did not.
I saw the article.
Yeah. So immediately the response is, well, it was just a joke. It was just joking. First of all, okay. And then, but that is taken now as absolutely what happened. The article here in the Des Moines Register just said, after a teacher's joke last week about forcing students to be gay. So immediately we know that they're taking the side of the school teacher, and take a few shots at the author of Libs of TikTok by calling her a far-right influencer. And then the Des Moines Public Schools had to issue a response. Superintendent Roberts said, as we know, attempts at humor and sarcasm, again, immediately taking the line that it was a joke, especially online, can be easily misunderstood. The employee was wrong. So a decent response there. Here's where I want to get to this, where I think I agree with this statement from the superintendent. This shouldn't need to be said, but perhaps it must. Our schools and teachers are focused on providing a quality education to our students, which does not include encouraging or forcing any student to identify with any specific sexual orientation.
Yeah.
Do we agree with that?
I mean, I would hope he's being honest by saying that, but the trend tells me that other forces are at work.
Yeah.
Going on in public schools.
I think in the rush to have schools deliver something beyond your traditional education, 4 R's or whatever else, you've put teachers in a really bad spot.
Yep.
Regardless of the teacher's individual perspective, if they lean left or they lean right, you are putting them in the crossfire. Because, to call somebody a radical right-wing influencer or whatever it was, like, let's be honest, this country is still more or less evenly split between folks who lean left and lean right. So simply to say the other side is radical discounts roughly half the population. And so why put your teachers in the crosshairs, regardless of which way you're going on this thing, to where they're essentially going to be at odds with half of the population? Like, stick to teaching the things we expect schools to teach, and let parents and families handle the rest of it.
Yeah.
And frankly, Chris, we got some feedback from your Iowa press appearance. Someone was disgusted, and they hate private schools. And my thought there is, okay, you can hate private schools or not, that's or love public schools, and that's fine. But if there is a rush to private schools, that is the market telling you, a bunch of people are unhappy with how public schools are delivering their education these days. So what if instead of focusing on these other issues, we focus just on the education, right?
Right.
And instead of schools trying to do everything, they're never going to satisfy everybody.
I believe that and this is my gut telling me this, the average parent of a child in the Des Moines Public Schools just wants everyone to knock off all of the nonsense and just teach the kids. I think.
I don't think that's, yes, and I think that's probably every public school in the state. I don't think it's limited to Des Moines.
So I want to move on real quick because this is what kind of got me a little bit upset. This was a statement from the Des Moines Public Schools press officer. Staffing technology, DMPS invests in resources and ensure the safety and well-being of our students and staff. In this situation, we are not taking anything for granted in light of the well-documented disruption this anti-LGBTQ has triggered elsewhere around the country. So the suggestion here is that the disruption is because this teacher's Twitter post got retweeted, not the Twitter post itself. I mean, this is the problem.
You know, it wouldn't have a disruption, Chris, if the teacher hadn't made that post to begin with.
Not making the post in the first place. So we're going to cruise right past, even if you accept the teacher's explanation at face value that it was a joke, albeit a really poor one or whatever. It is the teacher's tweet that caused the disruption. It is the teacher's tweet that has generated this. And nowhere in these statements is anything that we are going to stop that.
Mm-hmm.
What the real problem is somebody actually amplified the message and you don't like it.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Well,
it's just we cruise past all of this other very basic disruption and then find some way to blame someone on the right-hand end of the spectrum. And it happens time and again on the left on any of their issues.
Yeah.
They want to do something crazy, and the second you point out that they're crazy, you're the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next issue.
No, I think this points to the, we talked about this in terms of looking at the recent election results. I mean, there is definitely a cultural war going on within the public school system, and there are cultural forces that are trying to bring these what do you want, whether you want to call it woke or radical ideas, and I mean, if you just look at what the National Education Association is doing in their agenda, it's very radical. I mean, it's far from public education. It's indoctrination.
Well,
I mean, that's the dangerous part of it.
And certainly I agree with that, John. I think what I hope folks can realize, even if they're not with us on this kind of cultural battle, is this is a great example of how our institutions and how our media reflexively takes the side of anyone on the right-hand side of the spectrum and takes the word for anyone on the left.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay. Quickly, we have talked in the past a little bit about the Des Moines mayoral race. And again, kind of getting into there's an article in the Des Moines Register about Josh Mandelbaum frustrated with some of the mail that went out late in the mayoral race, and that it was put together by a third-party group highlighting his record. And so there's a whole lot of narrative here about campaign finance laws and what should have been disclosed and whether it's appropriate. And I'm going to set that aside for a minute. But at issue were mailers that were sent out saying that Josh Mandelbaum was, I don't know quite how to put it, but controlled by special interests, that he was a lobbyist and that his work would cause your utility bills to go up. And I think we even touched on this, John, in a previous episode. And the Josh Mandelbaum says it was a dirty tactic. What they put out there was untrue, false, and deceptive with no time for me to immediately respond or effectively respond. Well, the mailer...
Well, first of all, welcome to politics in a big city.
Right. I don't remember the Des Moines Register's long article or column about last-second mail from the left, which happens all the time. You message a campaign all the way through to Election Day.
I don't.
I mean, I don't even know what the point is there. But the false and untrue. So I want to get you guys' take on this. Citizens for Des Moines was the name of the group. Flyer said Mandelbaum, who works and lobbies for the Environmental Law and Policy Center. Objective fact, he is a registered lobbyist, has been for a long time for the left-wing Environmental Law and Policy Center. Quote, promotes policies that raise your utility bill and has only looked out for his clients. In the flyer, the group references a draft resolution from Mandelbaum in October 2020 that, including Boson, supported. And here's the issue. Achieving 100% 24/7 electricity from carbon-free sources by 2030. Now, at risk of trying to hold myself out as a electricity and utility expert, 100% carbon-free electricity in 6 years, I think at face value we can accept that's probably going to cost more money than the sources that we have at our disposal today.
I think that's right.
Also, maybe a pipe dream, but
right. Even if it
cost.
was possible. So pointing that out, it seems to me that's an issue. It's not even that this is some personal attack, right? I just this long thing, which is, I think it's driven because they don't like the fact that the interest group was funded by right of center forces and money that wanted Connie Boson to win. Mm-hmm. Set all that aside. That's not the point. Is that this is substantive. A voter in the city of Des Moines probably cares what their utility bill is like. Probably would like to know who their candidates work for, right? Like I just don't understand why the outrage over simply pointing out the fact that one of the candidates for mayor is a registered lobbyist who lobbies on behalf of left-wing environmental energy interests.
Well, this sounds more like sour grapes from losing than anything of just trying to.
Well, maybe, but it absolutely will raise utility rates.
Yeah,
and that is a substantive issue in a political campaign.
Yeah. And that's, these extreme environmentalists, that's what they don't want you to know, is that their agenda will do that. I mean, it's just unrealistic.
Yeah. Okay, last issue, Chris. You brought this up in the pre-production meeting this morning. DART.
Oh, yeah.
DART, Des Moines Area Rapid Transit, so buses in central Iowa, is threatening the need to raise taxes or cut service.
Yep. So
what do you think about that?
Part of it in there, Chris said Des Moines can't raise their property. The city of Des Moines can't raise their property taxes anymore because they're already maxed out.
Right.
And this is a real common and I'm not taking a position right now on how critical the service DART is or is not. And frankly, if you say DART is critical, you still could ask the question who should pay for it. But let's just assume that DART's a very critical service, but we're maxed out.
Right.
What are you spending all of your other money on? Right. In other words, this is what we see often is local governments max out their budget, and then all of a sudden something they deem to be truly critical rises to the top, and they go, well, we're tapped out. What do we do? Well, maybe you need to be a little more discerning along the way about understanding wants and needs and not maxing out. And frankly, why don't you quit giving development agreements to millionaire developers? Maybe you'd have a little more cash in your pocket. Maybe, Des Moines, you shouldn't fund a basic income pilot project, right? I mean,
right.
If you feel that strongly about it.
There's multiple issues here at play that I want to point out. One, the article, this is in Axios Des Moines this morning. I want to make sure I point that out. Pandemic relief funds have helped the organization in recent years, but that will end in 2025. So they've been operating off of one-time money for a while. And we've talked about this in the past, the idea of using one-time money for ongoing obligations. Mm-hmm. Here's an example. They've been operating the city's bus service off of federal.
The money runs out, and then they turn to the taxpayer.
And then they
go, well, if you don't give us the money tax, well, we got to cut this thing you like.
I guess we'll raise taxes. And
it's like sucking you in with a promotional rate.
So to help fund DART, cities in Polk County have to temporarily increase property taxes. Any of you believe that will be a temporary increase in property taxes?
Nope.
Does any Iowan really believe that any increase in their property taxes for mass transit is going to be temporary? Give me a break. Or the city council could increase franchise fee rates so we could stick it to utility rate payers You just raise taxes on your utility bill.
Boy, if Mandelbaum has his way, huh?
Yeah. So all kinds of good things that could happen there. Oh, also, if they do have to trim back the routes that go to the suburbs would be discontinued, as well as paratransit routes, although federally required paratransit routes would remain in place. So obviously they're under federal requirements that they have to provide certain routes that probably don't make money. Whether that's true or not, or fair or not, I don't know. But, and I'm with you, Chris. I don't even necessarily take a position on whether or not we need to have a robust mass transit system. Look, the stats are there's quite a few folks that use bus service to get to and from work. Or
such a thing
going.
as like a prepaid Uber debit card?
Yeah. It is an expensive system to maintain that operates, and it feels to me like the answer is always go back to the taxpayer. And it's the answer for DART. It's the answer for cities and counties. It's just, we're just going to go find some way to extract a little bit more from the taxpayer to make it work.
Yeah.
And if these folks need bus service to get to their employer, let's go with the employers and see if they want to kick in a little bit. Maybe that's the answer to workforce too.
When I worked for a private manufacturer, and it was not in a community where we had public transportation, right? And we needed a workforce, kind of out of our own pocket. We had to set up a shuttle system between our plants and a population center, right? I mean, we didn't say taxpayer, we need workers. We said we need workers. We'll figure out how to get them there and pay for it.
So, I guess to wrap that up, Chris here's got a radical idea. Is letting the free market figure it out.
Yep, to a degree.
Yeah. So,
and it just will close back to the things the free market can't provide or the city deems shouldn't provide. Focus on those things and those things solely, and don't let mission creep have you spending your money in a bunch of different directions that then critical needs in your mind can no longer be met.
Yep. Okay. Well, we're about out of time. I wanted to close with something that's really exciting. Really exciting. And it's an issue that I didn't think we'd be able to come back to.
Is it the landscape updates?
Yes.
Good.
There is a piece of construction equipment that is just driven across the courtyard here at Studio 130 to start tearing up sod again out here in the courtyard.
Do we know what they're doing?
Nope.
But they've got one call's been here. There's flags all over the place, and one of those little ride-behind buckets, those little ride-behind skid loader things just went by. So it's exciting. I kind of missed having all the construction out the window here, but we're back to work here at Studio 130.
Good.
All right. Gentlemen, thanks a lot. Thank you for joining us. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe and tell your friends. And with all of that, we will see you next time on ITR Live.